It's like there's a horse loose in a hospital.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is Morning Somewhere for April 26, 2024. My name is Bertie Burns. With me, sitting right over there, she's loose in a hospital. Ashley Burns, how you doing, Ash?
You gotta watch out for me in those hospitals.
All right, well, today is Friday, which means Ashley and I are following up on some things from the week, some things we need to correct some inaccuracies on, some things that we started talking about and maybe let go, some tangents, Ashley, that have loose ends.
So many loose ends. So many loose ends.
And or just some things that we want to further expand on. So I don't know about you, but I have a ton of topics.
Yeah, I've got a couple. But the most important one, Bernie, is I have to get out there. I have to get on the record. I have to apologize to my friends, to my family, to my countrymen. Bernie, I was wrong about the owls. I called them a wisdom of owls, which I actually like that group name, and I'm going to petition to make it official. But the official group name for owls is a parliament.
A parliament
once again,
of owls.
My apologies. I let everyone down.
And the people from our subreddit let us know that all of these different names were made by guys like 6 centuries ago when there was nothing better to do than be poetic about groups of animals. So, and it has somehow survived to this day.
One of my favorite ones that I learned about is a crash of rhinos.
I also want to follow up. We should do kind of a lightning round here for follow-up stuff because there's some interesting new topics today, including net neutrality is back. My lightning round.
Let's make some room.
So this is from Maddie Pants on our subreddit. She was weighing in on the horses running through London. And they said, I got to chime in as a horse owner. It's unbelievable how fucking stupid they can be and how hard they work to try and die.
Dude, I hear you, Maddie.
A gelding at a barn I used to work at had an itch one day and figured out which part of a tree scratched its butt real good. Next thing you know, he's walking around his paddock, literally impaled on a tree branch. Like, how hard did you have to rub up against that to end up with it sticking out of your ass?
It's true. Why are horses trying so hard at all times to die?
I have so much sympathy for things that can't scratch themselves. I don't know how I could go through life. We have Highland cows that stay in some of our pastures, and they get flies. When I go out there to see them, they won't let us brush them, and I want to brush them so badly. And then I see they have like flies on their eye, and I just think, how maddening would that be to have a fly on and around your eye and not be able to do anything at all about it? Like, this is the way I live now.
Right, you just got to shake your head, hope for the best.
Exactly. Hope for a nice breeze to come by.
You'd think animals would be a lot easier to domesticate. They'd be like, look, that one's got hands that can do the screechy scratching. That's it, I'm tame.
This one wants to scratch me, right? It's like, this one doesn't want to eat me. It just wants to scratch me all day. That's all it wants to do. And feed me.
And go boop, 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 boop.
All right, following up for some other stuff. You were talking about this stomp event that happens at your high school. And it got me thinking, we were talking about also the Harlem Shake. It got me thinking about things that people do in groups. And when you see them from like 4 or 5 years out, they always seem so much more wholesome. Like you even talking about stomps from your high school. That sounded to me like something from the 50s, like from some like a much more wholesome era, you know?
Yeah, I guess it does sound like that.
And I was thinking about it because I just saw recently a set of photos that somebody posted on the Austin subreddit for the Austin Kite Festival. Actually, you and I had been to that a couple different times because we used to live right by there.
Yeah, and it was always it was a big event every year in Austin was the Kite Festival, and some people would bring some really wild kites.
There's an old RTA of Teddy where he let a kite go and we had to chase it across the whole entire festival, like the entire park, and it ended up choking a guy with the string.
Right.
That was the Austin Kite Festival.
Attempted murder.
And I saw these photos and I was looking at it, and it happened like 2 weeks ago, right? But I was looking at these photos and I was looking at everybody's having a great time. They're just out there flying kites. And I thought, you know what, in 10 years or 5 years, we're going to look back at like a set of photos like this and go, man, look at how like healthy and happy everyone was, just living in the moment. No one's got their phones. I tried to find someone in the 20 different photos this guy posted. Nobody was on their phone. They weren't like staring at their little screen and disconnected from the stuff around them. They're all looking at the sky and looking at the kites and having a great time and smiling. And it's funny because I know in 5 years, people are going to be looking back at photos of the Austin Kite Festival and thinking, man, look at the people in 2024. They were really in the moment and they were happy and healthy. It's like, that's happening right now. And I know we're not that way, but we're going to look back at it with that lens and be like, oh, it was so much better back then.
I mean, Bernie, you could make that argument about the pandemic. Do you remember there was early on in lockdown, everyone was getting really into like baking bread, and an entire like generation was into playing Animal Crossing together because it hit at just the right time. And people were discovering new hobbies like gardening and all that because what else was there to do, really, right? But you could look at that and be like, oh man, look, everyone was like baking and learning new skills and doing all these things and just really embracing that time at home, What happened to those days? Forgetting that everyone was, basically locked in their houses.
Yeah, we were also washing our hands with sandpaper every day. And then anytime we entered a public space, we were counting the number of people that were there. And if somebody coughed within a 80-meter radius, we all ran away. Yeah, we tend to forget that part of the whole pandemic. But while I mentioned Teddy briefly, recently you were talking about the flip cameras. I didn't mention this on the podcast when we were talking about it, but the original RT Life idea at Rooster Teeth was I bought 5 of those flip cameras and I brought them in one day to a company meeting because it was only like 30 people at that point in time. And I put them on the break room table. I just put these 5 flip cameras down. I go, here, these are for everybody. Just pick one of these up and start shooting something. Because people didn't really have video on their phones even at that point in time or decent cameras. I said, so if you want to film something fun around the office, and then we'll have like more like behind the scenes content. And that's what evolved into RT Life. I was really clear though, what I didn't want people to do hidden camera stuff because that was a rule at Rooster Teeth. You could not do hidden camera stuff. There was one thing hidden that we did with Blaine where we pranked him, and another thing that Josh did with a scorpion. And that was like a big debate over whether or not we were going to do a hidden camera thing because you don't want to have this idea that people can't be themselves in a normal business environment. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Well, with the shutdown of Rooster Teeth, somebody went and found the old Vimeo accounts that some of the people on Rooster Teeth had. And one of the ones they found was when I gave Teddy a flip camera, and he was probably 4 years old, maybe 3. And I let him wander the Congress office doing behind the scenes and asking people what they were doing. It's one of my favorite videos of all time. And it was stuff. It's one of those things like stuff you can't script. At one point, he even drops the camera and it lands in such a perfect way that you see him bend down and pick it back up. It's like this little slice of mayhem that I absolutely adore. So I'll link that one in the link dump.
Like that video of the little toddler who gets a hold of her mom's phone and runs away, just absolutely cackling with glee. And it's like you couldn't possibly plan that because if you planned it, it wouldn't work. But it's one of the most magical videos on the internet. To that end, I'm going to put it in the link dump and it will brighten all of our Fridays. Yeah,
nice little Instagram reel. Following up on that, President Biden signed the bill, so now TikTok's clock has started for now having to divest and find a new owner. Somebody pointed out something really interesting, I thought, in this discussion is, okay, when you doing League of Legends now? Because they're owned by Tencent.
Right. And this isn't going to be an interesting one, too. TikTok, or ByteDance, rather, the owner of TikTok, will immediately challenge this in court. I'm sure you remember this, Bernie, but Montana actually previously voted to ban TikTok. Yep. And then a judge struck that ban down on First Amendment grounds. So there's actually already precedent for First Amendment protections for TikTok. So I'll be curious to see if the whole, well, we're not banning it, we're just forcing them to divest, we'll maybe give them like wiggle room or how that will work out. But, it has already technically been tried the once and struck down. Okay.
And can I round up my follow-up Friday in a quick little lightning round for myself here?
Lightning round.
Okay. So I found out we were talking about Ghostbusters and the Filmation animated series that came out in the 80s, right after Ghostbusters was popular. It actually turned out that Columbia licensed the name Ghostbusters from Filmation in order to use it as a movie. Part of the agreement was hundreds of thousands of dollars up front to license the name Ghostbusters and 1% of the profit of the Ghostbusters movie. And I don't know if that meant the movie franchise or just the individual movie itself. But it didn't matter.
I love the idea that there's the man in a gorilla costume who's getting paid for Frozen Empire.
Well, he's not getting paid because part of the Wikipedia article said that because of the way Hollywood accounting works, it turns out Ghostbusters has never been profitable and they've never been paid for it.
Of course they haven't. You know, they say that magic's not real. They've clearly never met a Hollywood accountant.
And the Harry Potter accounting must be wild. It must be actual magic mixed in with the Hollywood accounting magic. Also, I was talking about Valor, the Lyme disease vaccine. There was a point I started to make, and then we got off on a different topic. But the point I was making was it's like a metaphor for life at large now, where you keep hearing about things that are about to happen, and you're just kind of waiting for them. It almost feels like we're in a waiting room for the future. Everything that we're talking about, like AI, climate change, even last year they were talking about there's about to be a recession. There's about to be a recession. You know, keep hearing about there's about to be a world war. It just seems like we're all just waiting for whatever this enormous life-altering event that's going to be irreversible is about to happen. And it just feels like that's where we are. And I can't ever remember a time when it doesn't feel like we're living in the present. It feels like we're living in a period where we're waiting for the future, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. On the other hand, some of that future is here. You would think robots being one of them. So quick follow-up for me. The robot dog, his name is Spot. So well done to me.
The Boston Dynamics one. Yeah, I saw that.
Boston Dynamics
That's so funny.
Spot. And also, apparently, you can get one, not Spot, but a different company has launched a canine-shaped robot with a flamethrower on it. It's called the Terminator. And that one, by the way, bargain price. It is not going to run you $70,000. It's only $9,000, and presumably buying one automatically puts you on a list.
You pay $9,000 to get a knock on your door the next day. What's your flame-throwing robot for? It's like, this is just for personal use. That's all.
I know, exactly.
Home
right?
defense. And then the last thing I had on my list was we were just talking about cons. We'll probably talk about it at some point in the future, but we were talking about how Kentia Hall was the bargain basement of it. I don't think people realize actually how expensive these booths at cons are. Like just leasing the 10 by 10 cement pad for a really small booth can be like $10,000, $15,000 for some of these conventions, depending on the size of the convention. And, you know, for some of them, we paid like $60,000 because we were going to see, I'll anonymize this as much as I can. We were going to see all the managers for a popular gaming retail outlet. And so that was like $60,000 to just attend their con. And then we had to commit to like tons of marketing, which is basically paying them to put up posters to tell people at the convention where our booth was and that kind of thing. You have to commit to doing that as well. I don't think people realize how expensive those things are. And that's before you build these huge monstrosities that get thrown away at the end of the week.
Yeah. I mean, we when I was running the No, we did coverage for E3 with YouTube, and we had space at the convention center. The only reason we were ever able to do any of that is because YouTube covered it. We would never have been able to afford something like that. It was insanely expensive. I can't share the exact like financials, but it was pretty wild.
All right. Anything else for your follow-up Friday, Ash?
Yes. One little follow-up is Cat Vision. We were discussing whether cats see in black and white. They actually do have a range of color vision, but it is different from a human color vision. Like they don't see red, but they do. Apparently, they see a range from like blue to yellow. They're partially colorblind. However, they do have like some ultraviolet cone receptors in their eyes, so they can actually see to some degree ultraviolet light. How cool is that?
Yeah, and moving into new topics for this week. This one is actually kind of a follow-up. Like this will be actually a sorbet to cleanse the palate. So we didn't really talk too much about Earth Day this week, which happened on Monday. But it got us talking about Earth Day topics kind of all week long. Something that's come up recently, and I wonder if this is the same in other countries. Right now in the UK, if you buy like a Coke off the shelf, like a plastic Coke, what would be 20 ounces in the US, and you screw off the top, there's this thing now where it doesn't disconnect from the bottle. You basically unscrew it, and then it goes off to the side, almost like a flip top, but a flip top connected by just a little bit thin strip of plastic. And it doesn't open all the way up. It kind of like opens up at like a 45-degree angle, maybe more like a 60-degree angle. And then you have to drink around it in order to drink the Coke. It's made the process of drinking out of a plastic bottle remarkably cumbersome from what it used to be. And I don't know what this is. I don't know. I never heard about this problem about bottle caps before I encountered the solution. Did you, Ashley?
No. From what I understand, the reason that they're now like these screw off flip top versions is to keep the cap with the bottle so that they're recycled together. I never knew that you would do anything else. Usually you finish the drink, you put the cap on, you put it in the recycling. Seems easy enough.
Right.
But this is a new thing that's happening. There's an article from Wales Online saying that from July 3rd, 2024, it's going to be mandatory across the EU.
To me, it almost seems like a psyop for the anti-environmentalist people, because I didn't know that plastic bottle caps were a huge litter problem. It's not, when I think of litter, I think of like cigarette butts and wrappers and plastic bags. I never ever think about plastic bottle caps. And I've never heard about like plastic bottle caps getting, you always heard about plastic straws, right? Getting up a turtle's nose.
Sure.
I never heard anything about plastic bottle caps. And I also feel like what lunatic in the world is taking the cap off of a plastic bottle and then throwing away the cap? Like they don't want to reseal their bottle after they're done drinking out of it? Are they just chugging the whole thing at once and just throwing everything on the ground? Who are these lunatics?
They just throw the cap over their shoulder, chug the drink, and then responsibly recycle just the bottle.
Can you imagine somebody walking around with like just an open bottle? They can reseal it and they choose not to. They're just going to chuck the bottle cap away. I also feel like these same people, it doesn't take much effort to just pull the bottle cap off of the side entirely. Just grab it and yank. You know, with this long plastic ribbon on it. But it does feel like a weird psyop of like, let's take something that's like not a problem, make it really cumbersome, and make people sick of making any environmental action. That's what this thing feels like to me. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I can't help but feel that way.
It does feel very much like a punishment.
For something that I didn't realize was a problem, But I guess it was. Yeah. I guess they wouldn't do it if it wasn't a problem. It also, I have to say, the little like stronger bit that holds the cap onto the side of the bottle at this like really awkward 60-degree angle, that's just more plastic. You know what I mean? Honestly, at the end of the day, it's just more plastic.
I thought the follow-up, but that you were going to step into the follow-up / new news was going to be about net neutrality. Bernie is back.
Yeah.
The FCC has voted to reinstate the 2015 net neutrality rules that basically declare that broadband internet is a utility, and that as a result, basically web broadband providers can't throttle traffic from certain sites, or they can't charge sites extra for access to their customers. As an example, I remember when net neutrality was originally a big discussion, one of the topics was things like Netflix, right? Netflix is a company that operates entirely via these broadband channels. It doesn't pay the broadband anything for the access to customers and things, right? Do you know, and Netflix uses quite a lot of bandwidth, and the providers were saying, why should they not be paying us for, if their business relies on, our broadband services and everything. Netflix, if I recall correctly, there was a study in 2022. Yes, here's a Netflix accounted for 9.39% of all global downstream traffic in 2022, according to Sandvine's 2022 Global Internet Phenomena Report. So it is a healthy amount of internet traffic, and I think broadband providers were hoping to get a cut of that. And this net neutrality says can't do that. Specifically,
broadband being classified as utility is a very big deal in the U.S. My previous career was in telecom, and when something is classified as a utility, that becomes very important. We were just talking with a friend of ours who works in the telecom industry, and parts of the cell phone network are considered to be utility and other parts are not. And it really does open up a lot of protections when something is classified as utility. And I think it's important for broadband to be classified as such and for it to be protected, because if you think about all of the utilities that come into your home, broadband and internet has slowly worked its way up to being like top 3. Electricity is absolutely vital and you have to have it. But I often wonder if people had to turn off like their heating if they get it from gas or had to turn off their water, would they turn that off before or after they would have to turn off internet? You know what I mean? I think internet is absolutely vital to so many people and the way they live today. And we could talk about this for a long time. I've done a lot of speeches about this because of my experience in the telecom world, but it does open up a lot of other things too in terms of protection. Like there's something for phone land telephone lines called the Universal Service Fund, which basically makes it so that if you want a telephone line anywhere in the world, or excuse me, anywhere in the country, you can get it and you can get it installed. Even if you're at the top of a hill in the middle of the country, they will find a way to get it to you, and the Universal Service Fund will help them pay for it. Everybody pays into it as part of their phone bill. If you go look at a phone bill, if you still get one, you'll see that you pay into this Universal Service Fund, and they can create these things to have universal access to the telephone network. Likewise, I think it's really going to be critical in the future for people to have universal access to broadband. I don't think that's a radical statement of any kind.
I don't think so. I think that if you had said that a decade ago, there would have been people going, oh, yeah, right. But now I think we're to the point where everyone would understand and agree that most of the services and the things that we get rely to some degree on having access to broadband.
Man, when the internet goes out, it's surprising how many services now go with it. Like if you have an internet outage, typically people are now losing what essentially was cable in the past. They're losing their telephone as well. They're losing all sorts of communication for devices within their house to control heating and cooling. It's interesting. Everything is working its way onto the broadband utility, and I think it's becoming ever more important to protect it and also protect like the access that different businesses have to provide services over it. Anyway, we could talk about this forever, but it's cool to have net neutrality back. I think it's a really important discussion for where we are in the world today, and I hope this leads to more progress and more protections. I hope so
too. And then the last current topic that I wanted to talk about today is Fallout 4 has got a next gen update. They announced this like 2 years ago, I think, and it's just hit. So there's this. It's like a 14 gigabyte update on PC, at least that is supposed to modernize Fallout 4 for current gen consoles, newer PCs, all that stuff, and also breaking mods.
Yeah,
and there
breaking
are some
mods,
very
yeah.
upset. There were some very upset modders over this. There's a very popular or very highly anticipated mod for Fallout 4 called it's Fallout London. The idea is to make, how there's all the Far Harbor and those other like Fallout like DLCs that explore new areas. This was supposed to be one that takes the game to London, and it was coming out on the 25th or 23rd, I think. And then Bethesda was like, bam, our thing is coming on the 25th. Hooray, everybody. And now the modders are upset because they had to delay indefinitely because they're going to have to go back and retest all their stuff. There's a lot of modders who are going to have to re-release their mods with the new update in mind.
Yeah, and this is from one of the leads of the Fallout London mod, one of the leads of the team. He was very upset about it, said it essentially screws them over. I do understand that there is always going to be a hesitancy about working with the community because we're not industry professionals, Carter explains. But there are schemes where they do work with community members, so why isn't that being done? Yeah, he was really calling them out.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why you'd be frustrated if you've been working on a project for years and you finally got a date, here it comes, and then it's a surprise next-gen update that's coming almost on the same day. So now, when you get close to that finish line, there's like an excitement to it, and to have that sort of like pulled back, that's frustrating. However, my understanding is they don't have an NDA or anything with Bethesda, so Bethesda's not going to tell them anything. And it is a risk when you're working on mods that the developers will release something that will, like a patch, whatever, it happens all the time, that will break or otherwise require extra work. And you can't exactly ask the developers not to update their game because you're working on a mod. So it's understandable frustration, but I also wouldn't put that on Bethesda.
All right, Ashley. Well, anything else for everyone to cap out this lovely week before we send them off for the weekend?
Yes, I would like to say a very happy birthday to Hannah Rogers, and also thank Chris R. They are our sponsors for today's episode of Morning Somewhere. Thank you both for sponsoring this episode, and happy birthday, Hannah.
Ashley, bad news. Just got the first protection in now that net neutrality is back and the internet is now a utility. The first protection in place is when you're opening a file on the internet, you can now only open it at a 60-degree angle, 60%, and it scrapes your face while you're watching it. So I guess this is what we're going to have to deal with going forward.
Bandwidth.
All right. Well, that does it for us this week, ending April 26, 2024. We will be back to talk to you on Monday. We hope you all will be here as well.
Bye, everybody.